Thank you. There's a piece of data that I want to share with those that are interested in the issues of Hashem and issues of the Torah. I'm not going to be technical or going deeper than necessary, but I'm just going to share a few verses here and there, and then leave ourselves to think and ponder on those things. First and foremost, the book we call the Torah is not the original book. It's quite clear it's not the original. We read it in English, we read it in Shona, in Debele. Sometimes we read it even in what we call Hebrew, which is what I would call summarized Yiddish or syncretized Yiddish, which is now popularized as Hebrew. But it is not the final or the original. The manuscript of these books are not known, they have not been discovered, we don't know where they are. And above all and in everything else, the scholars that compiled these books and put them together, we are not sure or confident whether they were inspired by a higher force or higher source, or inspired by an agenda or a program for their own ultimate end. Now, but when you look within the same book, within the same book we call the Hebrew Scriptures, because the Hebrew Scriptures, as we are taught and told by scholars, consist of three sections or three libraries that were put together. We have the first 5 books, which we call the Torah, which we assume and accept in belief and in faith, and with cardinal proofs here and there that they were compiled by a man or a prophet we would love to call Moses or Moshe. And these are from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then we have what we call the prophets. And the prophets, we know they are now classified, and they've got 2 groups of prophets: the major prophets and the minor prophets, which is the classification by scholars to make it easy for them to do analysis and critical analysis or higher criticism of these books, in order for them to define the sequential truth and the logical truth behind the compilation of these books. It is academic, and out of it, the hope is that they can be able to discover the mind or the thinking of the force that caused the compilation, the writing of this book. And then we've got what we understand as the wisdom writings, of which the Psalms is the popular one, followed by the Proverbs and the philosophical book of Ecclesiastes. These 3 books, or these 3 libraries, as I want to say, within them you find there is forces that speak through human entities, and these forces we all accept now from studies that they were called, or they are called, the elohim. And the term elohim, although now in the English version of the Hebrew Scriptures appears as God, G-O-D, capitalized, in its original understanding and original interpretation, Elohim is plural. Its singular is eloah. And the plurality of Elohim, unfortunately for Christians and for many that are Trinitarian minded, does not confine Elohim to 3 entities. It confines Elohim to a class or a group of species, if I might use that term, or spiritual entities, or spiritual components in the mechanism of the ideology of the Hebrew philosophy and the Hebrew understanding. Now, we look at the Torah as authentic. The Torah is the final arbiter of truth. The Torah is the guide of our life as we live. But behind the Torah, as black people, as Africans, specifically believing Africans, not atheistic or highly educated ones, we believe that there is an orality behind it. When we speak of orality, we speak of the spirit that operates behind it. And the spirit of the Torah is what we call the Afro traditions, I will give a simple example on Afro traditions. When someone dies, we don't just go and bury them and forget about them. We've got a way of burying them. We have a way of cleansing and washing their body, the way we store the water that we have used to wash their bodies, and what we put on them, and the things that we make them hold in their hands, and the direction or the position according to the sun where their head faces. And after that, there is the reverence of the burial place where people do not go and play over the grave or do anything. And when the person has been with us for a long time and has died in a manner that we don't accept, we go back and talk to him and arouse his spirit and arouse his energy. This is the oral Torah. But the problem arises with the written Torah, because there is a man who compiled it whom we know as Ezra. And according to the studies that we have done and that we continue to do, we want to say clearly, without any fear and without throwing spanners into the beliefs of many people, don't trust the written Torah. Even Jeremiah the prophet in Jeremiah 7 verse 4, he says they have tampered with the original. The scribes have written it and have twisted it. And Ezra and the Levites, who is the scribes who came from Babylon, they had the final compilation and editing of the version of the Old Testament, which we have now. And Ezra did this because he based his authority of priesthood based on the Aaronic heritage that he claimed he had, which you can find in Ezra 7 verse 1. And it's unfortunate because while he could have come from the roots of the Aaronic priesthood, the enforcement and authority of him compiling the Torah came from a pagan king. If you read in Ezra 7 verse 26, you find that he was given authority by a pagan king to have the final say on the compilation and the writing of the book, and the formulation of the fundamental belief systems that today masquerade on the earth as Judaism. And when we look at that, we find that it is a very questionable authority, and Ezra is a questionable personage, because if you split his name, you find that you have got Ez, then you have got Ra. Now we are now going into the semantics of his name that points us to the belief system that he could have. And the whole battle that we have here is the war that has been fought for generations, a silent war that has affected your belief system. If you are either a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or an African traditionalist, it is the war of the authority between the Aaronic priests and the Levites. And the Levites, unfortunately, all the Levites that you find in this book called the Torah had a class difference with the majority of other people. But they carried one very essential thing that when we look at it now, we find, okay, this is what they carry. They all carry Egyptian names. The Levites don't carry any other names, they have Egyptian names. I'll start with the biggest Levite who comes up in the Torah, and this is Moses. His name is actually Egyptian, and Mr. Rameses or Ramoses. And scholars have dwelt and discussed this name and discovered that it's not a full name. It's an abbreviation, or it's a synonym for. It has a lot of other things that can come into it and we can point to its origins as ancient Egyptian mysteries or Egyptian pyramidology. And now Aaron, Aaron, and Phineas is Nehas. Nehas is Egyptian for the southern, who was darker, who was black, much more black, darker than my face, darker than most of our cousins in Sudanese. And Phineas also means to hiss like a snake. That's the people that we are dealing with. And the Levites had a connection also with certain entities that invaded the dimensions of the earth. The Levites were authorized to use the pyramidology, or in other words, the technology from ancient Egypt, to communicate with entities from a dimension that I will deliver and share with you. I want you to look in your hands, and when you look in your palms, you find that